You know, Martha, she mutes the whole world. You know, she just mutes everybody. That's her thing. So hey, we're glad to have, I'll start all over then. We really appreciate you being with us. This is Diverse and Aquatics All About Triathlon session. We certainly appreciate our panelists, excellent group of panelists, so you're going to hear more about them. We also have over 60 participants, and we're really excited about that. On behalf of Miriam Lynch, the CEO of Diverse and Aquatics, welcome. I'm Norm Sievers. I'm presently the chair for the Diverse and Aquatics Triathlon Council. It's a unit within DIA that we're attempting to build, and later on, going to tell you some, or ask you at least to give us some ideas about how direction we might go in that, with that unit. So just really quickly, here's the way the agenda kind of is going to flow. We are going to have the bios of our panelists read for you shortly, so they don't have to do that. They can go right into their presentations. Our panelists are going to, first thing, our panelists, we've got a great group of panelists. We've got one of the best age group triathletes literally in the country here with Khadijah Diggs. We have got Max Fennell, who has his pro card, first African-American male to have his pro card. We've got Sika Henry, who's on her way to getting her pro card. And we've also got the race director for a growing triathlon, the Mighty New Her, which is an all women's triathlon that's growing. It started in Texas, now it's in Florida. So we've gone from age group all the way up to race director. And folks, we've got a lot of experience, a lot of good information to share with you. We're going to ask if you would to use the chat to input your questions, because after the panelists finish their talks, and the panelists have been asked to talk to us about their triathlon journey, what obstacles they ran into, how they overcame them. We've asked them to share with triathletes information they have if you're interested in becoming a triathlete, ideas, recommendations they have for you to move into the sport. And also, even if you're an experienced triathlete, some of the training tips and other things that they might share with you. But if you've got questions, put them on the chat, please. And if you can, direct them to a panelist. And then other panelists can certainly elaborate and you know, add to that. Also, I mentioned the DIA Triathlon Council. It's a fairly new group. We want to grow it, we want to build it, but we also want some input in terms of the direction that it might take. Our original thinking is that the DIA Triathlon Council can be the go-to place for newbie triathletes. How you get started, getting your training plan put together, how you do your transition, all those basic things. And then people can, you know, grow out into other bigger groups and also their local triathlon clubs. But we love to be, at least that's one of the directions we're thinking of, but we're open to that group taking a different direction. Also, there are two key people here that really helped to make this happen. They really drove this forward. That's Martha Fowler, who is DIA's Director of Operations, and Thaddeus Gourmet, who you just heard him a minute ago. He is DIA's Community Engagement Partnership lead person. So those are the two people really who made today happen, and I really appreciate all the help that they've provided me as in terms of moderating this. So with that, we're going to get right into the program, and Coach Thaddeus is going to tell you a little bit about the DIA mission. While we've got you, we want you to know a little bit about DIA. We hope you agree to be a part of it. And also, Coach Thaddeus, in addition to being a triathlon certified coach, he's also certified to do some cycle training, some running, and he's involved in a group that focuses on mindfulness. And if you've probably heard that term, it's used now in the corporate world. It's also used by athletes to not only help them with training, but also in race situations to stay in the now. So Coach Thaddeus, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the DIA mission. And then Thaddeus is also going to lead us through a brief mindfulness icebreaker, our team building session to kind of bring our group together. So Coach Thaddeus, thanks for being a part of this. Go for it.
Thank you, Norm, and welcome everybody. And as Norman said, I'm part of the faculty for the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And the mind-body medicine is taking our breath and our mindfulness in the moment and accessing the now in a powerful way. And I'm sure our elite and pro athletes are familiar with being mindful and being in the now. So before I talk more about diversity in aquatics and its background, if we could just find a position where you're comfortable, because we're going to do some breathing together. And ideally, if you were to sit up straight, if you're sitting in a chair, and then relax down with your hands on your laps, your feet planted on the ground, unless you're sitting in lotus, if that's comfortable for you. And we're going to take a moment to come into the now through our breath. And just notice how you're breathing right now. And as you're noticing your breath, also start to take notice of and increase your awareness about how your body feels in the space that you're seated in right now. Notice the air temperature, if a fan or air conditioning is blowing, how it feels on the skin, how your body feels connecting to the surface of what you're sitting on, how your feet feel planted on the ground. And to deepen our awareness of our bodies in the here and now, and sharing it in this communal mindful moment, let's start to breathe in our nose and out our mouth. Breathe in our nose and out our mouth. And as you breathe in, allow the air to go deeper into your lungs so that you can actually feel your belly rise. So breathe in our nose and our belly rises. Exhale through our mouth and it falls. Breathe in our nose and out our mouth. And to deepen your awareness about your breath, you can say soft as you breathe in and belly as you breathe out. Soft as you breathe in, belly as you breathe out. Soft, belly. Soft, belly. And as you breathe with a soft belly and continue to be mindful and intentionally breathing deeper and with more quality, deep into your lungs, allowing your belly to rise, know that this is an act of self-care, a mindful moment that stimulates the vagus nerve, which is part of the parasympathetic nervous system, and it decreases the effects of the autonomic nervous system, which is the fight, flight, or freeze part of our nervous system. When you deep breathe with a soft belly, you increase oxygen flow. You also increase a sense of well-being and a connection to self and others, compassion, empathy. And you give yourself a respite from all the busyness and the noise and this talking of the day. Just bringing your sense of awareness to yourself and to this group as we breathe with a soft belly. And if other distracting thoughts come in, as they will, you just watch them and let them come and let them go, and bring your attention back to soft belly. Soft belly. And as you continue to breathe with a soft belly, you can do this breathing anytime and anywhere to have a positive impact on anxiety, frustration, anger, confusion. I even do soft belly breathing while I'm on the bike or the run or the swim, deepening my breath, making it more rhythmic with the intention of settling down and being relaxed before I go faster or harder or longer. And as we begin to close this mindful moment that we're sharing, take a few more deep, soft belly breaths. And when you're ready, you can slowly wiggle your toes and your fingers and open your eyes and come back to this triathlon webinar. Thank you for letting me share. So the mission of Diversity in Aquatics is to save lives through education, promotion, support for swimming, water safety, and healthy aquatic activities. We strive to provide a platform that empowers voices and create change. Develop collective resources for aquatic professional athletes and enthusiasts to enable members and communities with the necessary tools to eliminate drowning disparity and provide opportunities in aquatics for underrepresented populations and in all aquatic activities, which the foundation of is swimming and being safe in and around the water. To educate, to promote, to support, these are our pillars, because knowledge and awareness can contribute to water safety and drowning prevention. Just like learning about fire drills in school, even though there's no fire. That's education. So to keep water safety and learning to swim in the forefront. To advance research and establish a collaborative network to build community of researchers, athletes, practitioners, and professionals. And this research even includes historical instances of systemic racism, generational trauma, individual trauma that are barriers to learning to swim and participating in aquatic activities and sport. To support the inclusion of organizations, all organizations that are active and interested and connected to communities and in their underserved and underrepresented areas where they're increasing participation and breaking down disparities found in aquatics.
Great, thank you, Thaddeus. And this is a great introduction to Diversity in Aquatics. I invite everybody to stop when you get a chance, go to diversityaquatics.org and look at the website, become a member also, and reach out to us, because we are constantly looking for people to be part of this amazing team and join us as part of, not only as a member, but also as a volunteer. And there are great opportunities, and we have everything we can do to make this, to create this voice and to create this platform where we can share very valuable information and bring, you know, really amazing people like our guests today. I am going to go ahead and introduce them. So I want to talk about all about triathlon. So we have three amazing people with us tonight, and we have Max Fennell, or Fennell. Max, you can correct me if I'm not pronouncing it right.
Fennell, yeah.
So I want you, you're gonna see Max's a link to his bio and his website, and I want you to stop at his website also to read a little bit more about him. But all I'm gonna say is that I'm inspired already from his story. He is an entrepreneur, a professional triathlete. He is based in the Bay Area. And a little bit of his, you know, his story is that he was diagnosed with ADHD early on, and he needed an outlet. And eventually he finds it. He finds this person that lent him a bike, and his life changed completely. So in 2014, Max was qualified to the pro as a professional triathlete in the fourth season of 2014, becoming the first African-American professional triathlete. So welcome, Max. This is amazing story. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of what he said. And he says, "That is why I try. I remind myself that it is possible to achieve whatever it is I desire." So that is very powerful. There is more in that quote. So go to the website and read it. The next person I want to introduce today, one more thing. You will see the link to the website on the chat, so you can also go there. And Max, you're okay. Your microphone is working, right?
Yeah, my mic's good.
Okay, excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so the next person I want to introduce to you is Sika Henry. Sika has also an amazing story. I love her website because I was able to have that kind of fresh feeling of what she was telling us, her story and personal facts about her. Sika is an amazing triathlete, but she has started as in the running in high school, and swimming and running, and she focuses on the 70.3 distance of triathlons, and her first full Ironman was in 140.6 was the World Championship in Kona in October 2019. So that is amazing. So she is in track to become the first super pro African-American triathlete. She's passionate about increasing diversity within the sport of triathlon, because African-American make up only 0.5% on the sport. So thank you, Sika. This is very important for us that you are here and you are doing that kind of promotion. It is very important that we do promote our women into the sport of women of color in the sport of triathlon. Very, very important. So we'll put the website as well. Go ahead and read that. And these are some amazing shots. So I want you to know. So I look all over and I couldn't decide which ones I was going to pick, but this was amazing. Also, Sika has been featured in multiple magazines, and she has a blog. So go ahead and read it. There are some really great stories. Thank you. Okay. And I want to present to you also Khadijah Diggs, and I loved her story also. She is a triathlete, she is a mother, she is a project manager, which I love that. We need to talk about project management someday. And Tirkut was, I want to change the world one race at a time. Khadijah is focusing on she is in a team USA and Silver Ironman All World Triathlete. Her mission is to promote a positive image of Muslim women and Islam in general through sports. So with that, thank you for all three of you that are here, and I'm going to pass the baton to Norman, who is going to facilitate this conversation with you.
After those introductions, this is where I want to go, woohoo! All three, big round of applause as if we were physically there, but I'll let that slide.
Martha, is our race director not with us? Race director not with us?
No, I don't think we have.
Okay.
I didn't see.
Okay, no problem.
Patrick. I did not see her, but if she is in our.
Oh, that's okay, no problem. We'll just go with what we got. No, we're good. So we're going to start. We're going to start ladies first. Khadijah, I'd like to start with you and you share your triathlon journey with us. Share your obstacles you overcame. Share with us your recommendations for a newbie getting started. We'd just like to hear from you, and then we'll go with Sika, and then we'll finish up with Max. And while all this competent triathlon knowledge is being shared, remember, put your questions on chat, direct them to one of the panelists, and we'll kick those questions out so they can respond to those at the end of the presentation. So Khadijah, thanks for being with us. You're on.
Thank you for having me. I'm completely honored to be with the group that you've invited me with. And my story is very different from theirs. I'm an older athlete. I'm definitely the oldest of the group. I didn't even start doing triathlons till I was already qualified for the Masters division. I did my first triathlon as part of an initiative for my sorority. I belong to Gamma Gamma Chi Sorority Incorporated. It is an Islamic-based sorority. I did the Lake Lanier Iron Girl Triathlon in Lake Lanier, Georgia, and I came in third to last. But I had an amazing time. I did it on a fixie, and if you don't know what a fixie is, it's a bike with no gears. And if you know anything about Georgia, I did about 1,200 feet of climbing with no gears. And Sika knows exactly what that feels like. Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but I had a ball. By the end of the week, I had searched other triathlons and I had signed up for 3 more. And I've been racing ever since. I didn't really get too serious about training until I met a man named Alonga Thandaway. And he's like, you know, you're pretty good at this. You should do some training, maybe get some racing. And I know these 2 other young ladies, you might want to do a relay with them. And that was the first time I ever thought about being competitive. The 2 young ladies I did the relay with, one, her name is Yulene Josiah Tanner. She is actually a professional runner. She is the Guyanese 10K national record holder, 10K and 5K record holder. And then another young lady, her name is Kathy Murray. She's actually my strength trainer now. She rode with the Atlanta Metro Cycling Club, which I belong to. And they're both bang up triathletes, and they asked me to be the swimmer. And I was like, oh man, I've got to really swim fast. These guys they want to win. And it was the first time I competed with other people. It was the first time I competed with the mindset of wanting to win. And we came in second. We were the only all-female team, and we beat all male teams. And that was the first time I got a taste of what it felt like to really race. And that started it all. I made a goal to become part of the U.S. triathlon team. And everybody thinks there is some kind of altruistic I don't know, meaning to wanting to do it, I saw this young lady in a Team USA kit, and she had her name, you know, our names are on our rear end. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. She's got her name on the back of her kit. How do I get one of those? They kind of looked at me and they were like, well, that's a Team USA kit. And, you know, most of when you race internationally, a lot of times they want you to have your name on your kit. And then I started researching what it would take to make the U.S. team, and it seemed overwhelming. Unlike Sika, I've been a swimmer all my life. I've never known not swimming, which is probably unusual for most Hispanics and African Americans. And I joke with Norm when he talks about the drowning statistics for Hispanics and African Americans. I was like, well, do I drown twice because I'm Cuban and African American? So how does that work? But I've been a swimmer all my life, but I've never swam competitively. I'm a city kid. I grew up in New York. I didn't have a bike. I had a big wheel, but I don't recall ever having a bike. And I ran the 800 meters in college, so I didn't know anything about running anything really over a 5K. So the first time I tried to make the team, I failed. I literally passed out on the run because I was so bent on trying to make the team. I made a few mistakes on the bike and ran too hard and passed out. And then the following year, I did eventually make the team. But I think my journey in triathlon is more about the people than the actual races. I've made some amazing connections with people. It's given me the opportunity. There's a lot of people, and it really kind of shocked me, people who've never met a Muslim woman. And then the fact that I'm competitive, that kind of shocks them. I like to talk trash. I like the act of racing. And that, I think that kind of surprises people as well. One of my close friends, Vaughn Spencer, she's a really strong runner. I'm a strong cyclist, and we'll point to each other at loop races, and she's like, you know, I'm coming to get you. I was like, catch me if you can. You know, that's the kind of thing that we do. And I think it's more about the people and the experiences. I've had the opportunity to travel places that I wouldn't have traveled. I unfortunately come from a very diverse background. Like I said, my father being Caribbean, and I was married to a man from West Africa, so I had traveled before, but I'd never thought I'd be going to Dubai or South Africa or all these other places. So like I said, it's more about the relationships and the experiences. And one of the greatest experiences, and I think it's the greatest friendships that I've made, is there's a young lady I met from my very first sponsor, Tri Sports. And it was the first year that I made it to Worlds, and she showed me around. She happens to be white, blonde hair, blue eyed, from the Midwest. She is one of my dearest friends now, and she is one of the people that made me realize, I know where everybody's talking about now, educating Caucasians about African Americans, but I think she educated me on understanding that we're more the same than different. We both had kids. We both had paperwork we had to do when we were traveling. You know, we called home to check on our children. We both train at night to make sure that we accommodate our families. And if you peel off our skin, at the core of it, we could have been the same person. And so I think that's the biggest story when it comes to my triathlon journey, how it's changed me and how I've had an opportunity for other people to see me as a human being, not just the shell and the hijab. So that's and my biggest obstacle really has been the clothes that I wear, and having people see me as just Khadijah the triathlete, not Khadijah the Muslim triathlete. And I tell everybody, if they're interested in, just do one. Find a local triathlon. You don't need any special equipment. If I've even lent out, I have a road bike I lend out all the time. You want to try it? Here's a road bike. Go ahead and try it out. Don't be afraid. Always say yes. Always say yes. And that's 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 basically it as far as my journey is concerned. I don't know.
Thanks, Khadijah. We appreciate it. We'll probably be back to you with some questions, I'm sure.
Okay.
Sika, so glad to have you with us today. So glad to have you recover from some of those bike situations you've had. And I know you've been working with the guys out at Slow Twitch. And so, yeah, looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. So I also grew up swimming. I don't recall ever not knowing how to swim. And I'm not on mute, am I?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. Yeah, I grew up, I was lucky enough to have a pool in my backyard. So with that being said, my parents, you know, they put my brother and I in swim lessons really young. And I'm grateful for that because I couldn't imagine how many experiences I would have missed out on had I not been able to swim. Going to pool parties, I love going to the beach, traveling, I snorkeled and scuba dived. So it's knowing how to swim, and now triathlon. So knowing how to swim has brought so many wonderful experiences to my life. So I did, and I actually competed all 4 years of high school as a swimmer, which you wouldn't know now because that is my weakest event. I'm not a strong swimmer, but I swam all 4 years of high school, and then my senior year of high school, I wanted to try a new sport, and the track coach saw me playing basketball, and he was like, "Oh, you can leap really high. You should come out for the track team." And I ended up being a pretty decent high jumper. So I had already gotten into college at that point, and I contacted the coach, and I walked onto the track and field team at my alma mater, and I did high jump all 4 years. I was not into running like that. I didn't really enjoy long distances or anything, but after college, to stay in shape, like most people, I signed up for a 5K and then a marathon, and then you get hooked, and before you know it, you're doing all these Sunday long runs and trying to break, you know, your PR. And I just seem to have a natural knack towards the longer distances. My PRs just kept getting faster and faster, and I was blessed enough to have some pretty great results locally. And I had always on my bucket list wanted to do a triathlon, and I was going through a really bad breakup and I wanted a distraction, and I saw that Kinetic Multisports out here in the Atlantic district area out here, they had a sprint that was local, and it was, when I saw it, it was going to be in 2 weeks. I didn't have a bike, so I went and I got a mountain bike, a little better than what Khadijah had, and it's flat around here. God, or else I would have quit. I never would have done another triathlon after that. But I got a mountain bike. I got membership at a pool and started swimming again. And I did my first triathlon in 2013. It was a sprint. I came in close to last. I didn't do very well or anything like that, but I had so much fun. And I found that I got really fit really fast, going from running so many miles to doing cross training and swimming and biking. And I wanted to just keep increasing the distance. So kind of addictive, like marathoning. You try a sprint. I wonder if I can do an Olympic. And then before I know it, I was doing my first half Ironman. That's actually where I met Khadijah, my very first Ironman 70.3 Eagleman. That was in 2016. And I had a pretty decent time there. And so I hired a coach, and I noticed also the lack of diversity. I saw that Max was the first and only Black African-American pro triathlete. And I was like, oh, there hasn't been a female. So maybe that'll be my goal. And I just kind of put that out into the universe. And I was doing really well, actually. In 2018, I missed my pro card. I want to say, because you have to come in top 3. And I did Ironman 70.3 Eagleman, and I missed it by like 10 minutes. Then I did Atlantic City, and I came in, I think I was 7th woman or something there. So I kept getting faster and faster, and I thought 2019 was going to be a really great year for me. I flew down to Texas, and I signed up for Ironman 70.3 Texas. And so this was last year, and I had a pretty horrific crash during the race. I don't remember anything really. I just woke up hours later in the hospital, and I you know, I had a concussion, my nose was broken, my teeth were loose, my face was completely lacerated, and I had to get it stitched back together. I worked with like 3 plastic surgeons, and it was a really hard time. I live in Virginia and I work a full-time corporate job, and I had to take a leave of absence. I had to live with my parents for a few weeks and get shuttled to different appointments and stuff. But I never really felt like, except when I first saw myself in the mirror, that I was like, I'm never doing this sport again. I'm never getting on a bike. But a few days later, I got a lot of mail. People were really wonderful. And some of the mail I got was from children, like small kids. And they were cards from Black kids, people of color. And they were like, you're so inspiring. Please come back to the sport. And I was like, wow, representation really does matter. And it, you know, I cried a lot. And I would say that was one of the biggest reasons why I decided to come back. So my injuries were pretty severe, but my coach was great in helping me work towards doing Ironman 70.3 Augusta. So that was 5 months after my crash. And again, I saw Khadijah.
Yeah. I was calling splits, girl. I was like, she's
God, so hilly. I'll never do that race again. So hilly. But yeah, somehow I came in 6th amateur woman there, and I was like, okay, I'm back in the game and this is great. And 2 weeks later, I flew out to Kona. Hoka was one of the sponsors, and they get a free slot to give to whatever athlete they want. And they heard my story about trying to come back and wanting to get my pro card. So I flew out to Hawaii, and that was my first full Ironman. I wouldn't suggest that being your first full Ironman. It was so hard, but yeah, it was just incredible. And it's like Khadijah also mentioned, I've been able to connect with so many wonderful people. You know, Dan Hempfield, owner of Slow Twitch, and people of different nationalities and races. And yeah, it's just been able to connect me to people I wouldn't have otherwise met. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have questions for you also. Max, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We're looking forward to hearing your journey and your thoughts on someone who's considering becoming a triathlete.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. I think my story is a little unique in the sense that I now realize that I've been in this sport now for about 10 years. And I was lucky enough to grow up as, you know, one of those kids that was always just running around, varsity sport athlete. I splashed around. I didn't really grow up as a swimmer. I went to a sports camp that was up in New Hampshire. And there, you know, we would swim in a lake. We would do in-sport or in-camp competitions and stuff like that. So I knew how to splash around. But I got into this sport in 2011 when I actually sprained my MCL when I was training for a professional soccer team. And for me, it was a career-ending injury because I was 22 at the time and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I was very lucky enough that I was working at a coffee shop at the time, and this gentleman essentially lent me his old bicycle. And at that time, my understanding of bikes was like BMX bikes. I didn't really ever pay attention to the Tour de France, right? This is 2011, right? So I didn't really know about the types of bikes that they had out there. So I remember one day after my shift at the coffee shop, he's like, oh, come over to my office. I got this bike for you. And I go over to his office. It was right around the corner. And I see this bike. I'm like, oh, my goodness. Like, this thing looks like a Ferrari. And this is, you gotta understand, bikes are amazing now. But then, you know, this is just like, you know, this is when you're first getting an understanding of just like these slick, knife-like looking tubes and stuff like that. And the first time you're seeing aero bars. So I remember when Brian lent me his bike, I'm like, all right, this guy lent me his bike. I need to show him that, like, I'm going to take this seriously, because I didn't want him to be like, hey, like, give him this bike back. Because, like, at the time, like, you know, when your knees bummed, you're just like, you didn't really have many options. And he was like, all right, like, what do you want to do? And I was just like, oh, maybe I want to do like an Ironman. And he was like, oh, slow down, buddy. Like, you know, we've got the Philadelphia Triathlon and Philly. The Philly Tri is it's a really big race, really challenging course. It's a very friendly swim. It's downriver. And I remember I did my first race, And at the end, he's like, "How'd you do?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? How'd you do?" "I finished the race." He's like, "No, where'd you place?" I was like, "Oh, you place in these things?" My first race, I didn't even know that you could place. Like, I just thought people showed up and like did the thing and went home. And when I saw that I did very well, I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I'll try and do another one." And then I did the next one. I think I placed very well in my age group, and I got kind of hooked on it. And this is like what, like 10 years into Facebook, right? And this is where like very few of us have all connected. This is pre Black Triathlete time, and a few of us were like just kind of connecting. And all of us that have done triathlon have all had those experiences of, you know, being the only Black person at the race. And it's like, if the further you go back, we all had those experiences where you really were looking around like, oh my gosh, like without social media, you're like, I'm the only one out here. And so I remember just thinking to myself, all right, maybe I'll try and become a pro triathlete and kind of, you know, make a living that way, because I always had a dream of becoming a professional soccer player. But I didn't understand, being a 22-year-old, the type of grind that it was. And I went the traditional routes that so many others did, because I was lucky in the Philadelphia scene. There's a lot of old school triathlon individuals. So I was able to make a lot of good friends, have really amazing mentors. And I literally ate dirt as, you know, like a lot of these triathletes, pro triathletes, if you know now, where there was one season, the season before I got my pro card, and I'm grateful I did this, where I literally took, I think I had like $900 and I was living at my mom's house at the time. And, you know, I'm raised by a single mom. She loves us. And she went on a business trip, and I think I just disappeared because I knew she wouldn't have let me go down to Florida, just chasing my dreams. So I literally just drove down to Florida, and my buddy let me just crash in essentially his office. I remember I grabbed the mattress off the street, I threw it in there, and I was able to get some job at a local bike shop. And he worked for a company that also was a sponsor of one of these amazing training facilities called ING. So what we did was we kind of haphazardly set me up so that I could work for the company, but then also get free access to ING. And so if you remember when I was posting all those times, like literally, like I probably wasn't supposed to be on campus, but since it was truly an environment where athletes went to better themselves, like everyone essentially was always looking the other way, and I would just be running on the track and nobody would say anything to me. But, you know, early in my career, I literally just gave up everything and sacrificed everything. I barely ever went out. I was just waking up early in the morning, barely getting by. And I was fortunate enough that when 2014 came across, back when early in the sport, there used to be a lot of big races. And, you know, this is what's tough with what Sika's dealing with now, is that back then, there was like, come August, it was like every weekend there was a race that was paying out $100,000. So everyone could go to a race and have an opportunity. So if you're just trying to get your pro card to qualify for top 3, well, on any given weekend, you had the country's best athletes all spread out. So I decided to go to High V, and thankfully, you know, I got my pro card. I placed third. And I always look at that photo because I remember my mom's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna qualify." But I was so mad that I didn't win, because I think at that time I'd been just chasing wins, and it was just like setback after setback. And I remember my mom thankfully paid for that plane ticket. She went with me, and you know, I was bummed that I didn't win, but I was just happy that I got my pro card. But the thing is that then after I got my pro license, I was just like, all right, let's go do this. Like, I want to go race. I want to go do my first pro race. And that year, I did Ironman Miami 70.3, which probably was the worst idea that I could have possibly thought of doing. I probably should have just taken my pro card and just hung out and just, you know, kept training. But instead, I was just like, oh, let me just get my ego bruised. And I decided to line up against all these well-known pro triathletes. And you know, I've been there where just my swim wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I just remember like everyone just took off. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. And it's, you know, it's 1.2 mile swim. And I remember just getting through that, and I was just so demoralized. And I was on my bike. I remember just seeing this long train of pros just flying. I was biking fast. I always felt confident in my biking abilities. And then I just remember just getting onto the run, being like, oh my goodness, how am I going to run 13 miles? Right? Like, I thought I was going to do well. I want to be a pro. And I'm like dead last. I'm just having a horrible, horrible day. And I just remember finishing the finish line and literally just going eating a pizza with my buddy, and just knowing that this is what I wanted to do, and knowing that this is a sport that I know I could get better at. And I've been very fortunate enough that a lot of opportunities have come my way because of the sport of triathlon. And I'm confident that when this sport becomes more diverse, that we're going to see this sport continue to elevate. And I mean, if we just audit and look at what's happened in just like the past 2 years, or even the past year, with all of us getting much louder about how we want to see change in the sport, I think we're finally at that point where we're seeing that. And we're going to see leaps and bounds once the industry catches up, and once we see these younger athletes start filling in the gaps. So I'm excited to see where the sport's going to be in the next 10 years.
Thanks, Max. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Martha, did the race director join?
Yes, we do have Christina
Okay, there she is.
with us. So welcome, Christina. Can you?
Hi. Hello.
Christina, thanks for joining us. We're so glad to have you as a part of the panel. And I mentioned the race that you are race director of, and you probably do some other ones that I don't know about. But yeah, we're looking forward. This is all about triathlon, so we tried to cover all the bases. So we're all looking forward to race director's perspective of the sport and the athletes and where we are, and just share with us some thoughts you have.
So first of all, I'm going to put out there, I may be the atypical race director because just in general, I'm a disruptor. I'm a troublemaker. I'm, the person in the room that's like, why don't we have anyone who's not white like me doing this sport? Like, why is our marketing the chiseled white dude with the perfect swim form that no one ever, cannot do that? So I've been a lot behind the scenes asking those questions on different races. I do have some NDAs that are still active, so I can't name those particular events. But a lot of times, as someone in the triathlon community on the race production side, especially in regards to marketing, I've been the one that says, hey, from a very greedy, capitalistic, economic perspective, hey, do you really want to leave like 55% of the money off the table in this sport? Like, I'm here to help you grow your competitive field. Why? As a race director. So for me personally, it's not about that economics, but I understand the business side of it because I've been there. I've had to make the bottom line fit. And you have to run so lean in triathlon because just like as an athlete, you have all these expenses. As a race director, I'm basically putting together an open water swim, a cycling competition, and a running event all in one day. So when I came into the sport, it was about 12 years ago now, working at FIU. I still have my gig with FIU, and I was challenged by someone to put on a race. Now, I had never even been to a triathlon before that. And the first thing I went to 2 triathlon events. One of the first ones I went to was the South Beach Triathlon. And I was just like, holy shit, this is what they want me to put on? Like, this is insane. And I went with my son, who happens to be biracial, and I noticed something at that race. They had a kids fun run there and a kids section. And about a good percentage of the kids were multi-ethnic background. Like you could tell a lot of them just weren't background white like me. And it was a great race. And then when I looked at the pro athletes and the amateur athletes in the race, it did not reflect those kids that were active on that day. And that always stuck with me from the very beginning, because I worked in a college environment that's a Hispanic serving institution. And I went back and I really started to look at how, even in the amateur world of triathlon, things are marketed in such a way that is not inclusive, but exclusive. And I started to do things just naturally because I'm a disruptor, because I like to be that person, putting women in charge of like the triathlon group, making our co-race directors, you know, always making sure I had a mechanism to bring people who didn't look like the typical triathlete to the back end, to the behind the scenes, to the planning stages. Because I always believe if you have people behind the scenes involved in a sport, that reflects the athletes ultimately. So you can't have a bunch of white dudes making all the decisions in the back and expect anything else in a bunch of white dudes in the front, you know? Oh yes, Dana, you're a race director too. Yes, and the other thing is, I was a lot skinnier when I started in this sport. And as my body grew, I started to say and appreciate different concepts of how to experience triathlon. And sometimes I would gain weight and still beat my time. And so for me, as a full body woman that I am now, I don't see myself as having to lose weight to get faster at an amateur level. Now, pro something, and most pros have, I believe it's not necessarily nature, it's in your genes. You have the lactic acid, you have like the physical makeup, like you're out there. But for me, I was always thinking of, okay, you know, it goes along with inclusion. So if you have someone who's fit, who's larger, if you have someone who's in charge, who doesn't look like the atypical triathlete, that has learned the sport on the race director side, guess what? The student or the young adult, or even the person that's maybe a cousin or brother or sister, is willing to do that event because they're seeing someone that looks like them, someone that they can relate to, someone that understands their pain points. And I actually know Sika. I met Sika a long time ago. She did a great presentation. And she was talking about the same pain point that I was talking about to our Black women, our Black student union women on campus in regards to doing a triathlon, and that's hair. And I still think to this day, a lot of those questions that I get from these young ladies, it's not really answered, right? There's not necessarily a great product or something out there. So I bring that up because that's part of what we're trying to do in Mighty Moo Hair. And I came to Mighty Moo Hair by being more involved with the sport. And quite frankly, some of the big companies in Miami were approached by the brand to put on a race in Miami only for women specific. And they said, why would we do that? And the next year I came around to the brand owner because we're at the same annual event. And I said, what happened? I expected to see Mighty Moo Hair. Like, where is it? And she was like, they passed. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And so that's how I became to do Mighty Moo Hair. So all of those experiences I had with the students at FIU, getting really involved in a national level, trying to, my years and background in working in wellness and campus recreation at a Hispanic serving institution, and seeing you know, things that never made sense to me. So, you know, is our counterpart. If you look at the Tri team, it reflects very much a homogeneous Tri team. It doesn't have the cultural aspect that most of the student body at has. Whereas at FIU, we approached it with accessibility in mind, with inclusivity in mind. You know, we're not going to have not having a bike as an obstacle. We're not going to have, I don't know how to swim as an obstacle. We're not going to have, I don't know what to do with my hair as an obstacle. Okay. Then we're going to have a swim instructor that has the same exact hair and same exact hair problem you have. And I, as an administrator, as a race director, I'm going to seek out that person to hire that person that can teach you. Because can I teach an African woman about African American hair? No. But I know where to go and my connections through the American Red Cross and where to go into the community to find African American lifeguards and recruit them and be very targeted and very conscious in those decisions. And that's really what Mighty Mujer is about. The brand itself is about that. And it's kind of like a little bit of a struggle though, because by definition, we're excluding half of our popular gender association. So I'm just gonna say it out there, we're excluding men, right? And I get backlash for that. And our brand owner gets backlash for that. But at the end of the day, we are still engaging in conversations with people like Norman, with people like Thaddeus, that understand in order to get to a place of equality in the sport, we have to create safe spaces. And one of the few ways to create safe spaces is to have specific experiences of people together. And that can happen through a competition like Mighty Mujer. It can happen through an association like Black Triathletes Association. But you have to have these spaces where people feel welcomed and their pain points are addressed. Now, many of you are from South Florida, right?
Uh-oh.
From all over the nation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All over. No, not Florida only.
Okay.
I actually graduated from the University of Miami, so I understand the dynamic. A lot of people don't realize how diverse the University of Miami is, but they present a totally different picture of what goes on there.
Yeah. And so I asked because I am the race director for Mighty Mujer Miami. It is a national brand and I have a license. So I work alongside the race directors that put on the Austin and the El Paso event. And so I want to put out there, if anyone, especially a woman, is interested in getting in race directing, that is something to look at, a brand like Mighty Mujer. Because unlike me and my experience where I was just kind of thrown out there to produce my own race, Mighty Mujer gives you the infrastructure and gives you the training. And that in itself is a pathway to grow our sport, because we can't just grow the athletes. We have to bring everyone into the sport on all sides. We have to bring people of color and women into the moneymaker sides and into the athlete side, because either way, you have this imbalance currently. And you see it in you see it in the retail, you see it, you see very much everywhere. Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. And I just want to add one quick thing about the race with Mighty Mujer. I did it last year, and as a testament of this is that I was able to persuade my young daughter, 22-year-old Janina Fowler, and she joined me as mother-daughter team, and we won, I think, first place or second place, I don't remember. But the thing is that's when she realized how wonderful it was to be in the sports, in the sport of triathlon, and it's just a wonderful opportunity for a lot of people, because another thing that Christina does, it's all inclusive, all ages inclusive. So that's another thing.
It was exciting, Christina, to be there. Thaddeus and I had worked with a couple of those ladies to help them with their swim, and to see some of those ladies across the finish line in their first triathlon. It was so uplifting for everyone. It was just an exciting, it's an exciting event. Nice job you do with that.
Thank you.
So,
Martha, so we got some questions. Oh, go ahead.
Just a couple of things. Some of the members posted where they're connected. We have people all the way in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and people here in Florida. So if you feel like putting in the chat where you located, that'd be awesome to know how far are we reaching out our members tonight. Another question it came out earlier is that for anybody who wants to know, today Ironman announced the Race for Change initiative. Do you have any thoughts on that? And have they asked for your involvement? And this is going to our athletes. Did you hear about that?
I saw it today myself. I mean, I got to be honest. It doesn't really do anything for me because I haven't seen much from Ironman in general anywhere. So I don't know what the point of, having Race for Change when there are other steps that they can take that are much more, that will have a much more impact than whatever this initiative is that they're coming out with. I think it's another equity inclusive board, right? So, I mean, there are just other steps that they could take, which is, the first thing is you should reach out to those of us that are out there on the front lines and get our input before sticking around the same people and then saying like, hey, I got it, let's come up with a Race for Change and diversity, equity, inclusion board and say that Ironman's doing a good job when it's just like you're not.
Sika, your thoughts?
I agree with everything that Max just said. I'm pretty disappointed. I did see it today. Yeah, in general, the fact that it took them a week with everything going on after Ahmaud Arbery and, Black Lives Matter and the fact that they didn't say anything. I work for a pretty white corporation, and the fact that they said something before Ironman, I was like, really? No? It's hard. I have relationships with people in that corporation, and I have private conversations and go back and forth because my image has been used in things, and I don't want my image used in things if they're not on the same page as me and support the things that, it's like, don't put a Black image on your virtual racing, commercial, like, don't have me on the bike if that's really not even, if you don't care about diversity, inclusion. Yeah, so far I think it's a pretty weak response just to put that out there, but we'll see. I think things do take time. Change doesn't happen overnight, and maybe if people like me or everybody else is more vocal about it, they'll be forced to be more active. But yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have a lot of thoughts. I think everything Max said was pretty spot on. I haven't been contacted about the board. Other Black athletes that are popular and coaches in the sport haven't been contacted about it. So I don't know who they're talking to or, how they expect to understand what goes on. Like, it's not like somebody, diversity in aquatics is having a, webinar. Why didn't somebody from Ironman sit in and listen to these things? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
We are having these conversations, and we're opening this platform, Sika, and this is having you guys here. It's really, I'm sending a message out there and having this platform for everybody to have this dialogue. It's super important.
Yeah. And I think all three of us are on the same page, not even just from being an African-American perspective. I've had some pretty embarrassing things happen at Ironman races because of the fact that I wear hijab. Even as, I think it was 2019, I actually had an official almost want to pull me off the line. And the irony of it was I was in my Team USA kit. It was a non-wetsuit kit, and that's my best kit for a non-wetsuit race. And he was going to pull me off the line because he said I was racing illegally in an ITU approved kit. And the announcer knew me from previous races and said, hold on, we know her, that's fine, she's in a Team USA ITU approved kit. What if I'm just a Muslim woman who wants to race? And I started contacting Ironman in 2014, I believe it was, before I did my first Ironman race, because I wanted to make sure that I was adhering to all the rules that they had about compression and non-compression. And it is now 2020, and they have never responded to me. I'm an Ironman all-world athlete. I've qualified for the 70.3 World Championships in South Africa. They know who I am. Paula Newby-Fraser cheered for me by name in South Africa. And I knew that she knew me because my legal name is Kelly. So she wasn't reading my bib. She literally said Khadijah. They know who I am, and they have never addressed the issue of proper gear for Muslim women. They just like they have wetsuits and skins on their wetsuit that are legal for their races. They could have hijabi kits that are legal for you to race in. We can select one and race and not have to ask each and every race director, can I race? There's no wetsuit. Is it okay if I race in this? I want to just go there and race like everyone else. I'm very, very cool on Ironman, but they have the biggest races. If you ever want to race Kona, you have to race through Ironman, and they know that. And it's unfortunate they're not addressing not only issues related to race, but issues related to religion. It's disappointing, to say the least.
I'd follow up with this real quick. And my biggest thing is that if you just look at the Black triathlon community, it's filled with executive people, right? Just amazing, successful people. So the first thing, if you're really in touch, reach out to, I'm sure there's some people that are retired. I'm sure there's some people that can, do a part-time executive job, but Ironman should say, hello, folks, like, is there anyone out there that is willing to fulfill some of these executive positions that we have so that we can continue to move forward, make certain decisions so that we can grow this sport? If you're not reaching out to people saying like, hey, so-and-so, we're going to put you in this marketing executive position or this sponsorship partnership position, then nothing's really going to happen. So your race for change doesn't mean anything until I can see an executive person that sends me an email, say, hey, Max, I'm here, I got you, and here's what we're doing.
Marketing 101.
Well, I would like to take that as a continuation on what we can help our members that are our audience today. We have a question from Victoria Jade, and she is asking, she is a president of a collegiate club tri-team this school year. And their goal is to include everyone. And what she is asking is, how do I want to take this as a proactive approach and getting more people, specifically people of color. So how do you have any tips of suggestions, ideas, resources that can help us recruit, inspire, and create opportunities for students of color from diverse backgrounds? He's in California.
And what's the organization that they're associated with?
Victoria, no, she didn't put it, so I'll let Victoria, maybe she can unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about where you are from.
Yeah, so we're UC Davis, which is University of California, Davis, and we're collegiate tri-club team. So we're totally run by students. And so I'm the president this year, and I have a bunch of other officers helping me out. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think UC Davis is by me because I'm Northern California, right?
Yep.
My thing is I would recruit people, right? I would go out and say, hey, come to our swim practice, come to our bike ride, or the easiest way is just invite people to your team run, right? Just set up a weekly team run and invite people. The thing I always tell people when they say like, oh, how should we bring people? Don't come at it from the standpoint of like, hey, everyone, we're recruiting minority people. Don't do that. You know, just go around to where people are running, go to the soccer field and say like, hey, I'm so-and-so from the triathlon club, and we are trying to build our team. Would you want to join our team, or can you come to our run club and just check it out? Just invite people. And then once they see the camaraderie, I think that's the majority of the reason why we like triathlon, is because you can relate to people in the community, so supportive. So once they see like, oh, there's a team atmosphere over here, there's a community atmosphere, then that might just kind of bring them in, get them hooked, and then you can start saying like, hey, sign up here, join our team.
It doesn't have to be forced. I mean, it kind of just happened, you know. It just happened. And you're a college student, offer snacks after after race.
People get into the sport because of, and somebody offered them an invitation. They said, hey, you know, let's do this. Let's try this thing that we've never done before, and we'll do it together. A lot of friends that I have, the reason why they did their first 5K or marathon is because a friend, you know, sent them a link and was like, you know, let's sign up. Let's see if we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for Victoria. Do you have any people of color on your e-board now, in your leadership positions now?
In our leadership positions, we have okay, let me think. We have a couple, but those positions are filled by people who want to do it. And I'd say our team's not that diverse, but we do have some diversity in it. But yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, you can also reach out to, you know, people on the track team, right? What are they gonna do after sport, right? Reach out to those middle distance, look them up, send them an email, say like, hey, you're an 800-meter runner. Have you thought about just dabbling in triathlon? Like, you know, reach out to those athletes that have that desire of still following their sport, but understand the reality of where they are as a track and field athlete or a cross country athlete runner.
Max, I ran the 800 in college. The 800 is not going to help you on a triathlon. Yeah. I was close to 2 flat in the 800, and it does not help you on a half marathon.
Especially after that bike.
Yeah, oh, yeah. and pay attention to your unconscious biases, which is hard to do, right? So if you find that you're only talking about the sport or talking about your club in a room full of people that look similar to you, or, you know, that are lighter skinned, or, you know, then you know, like, hey, I need to intentionally talk about this sport at a BSU meeting, at you know, at a place that I wouldn't necessarily think of talking about it, because to be honest, you know, like that's what the college experience is about, right? You're there because you don't really know what you're into yet. So if you only go to people that are already into swimming, biking, or running, you don't know the person that's like, oh, I swam in high school, but I didn't make the college team. Well, that's a perfect collegiate, you know, recreational triathlete. You know, that person that ran in high school, but they weren't good enough to make the team because they needed to work full time. They needed to do something else, you know.
They have a Black student union association at your school?
I am not sure, but I'm definitely going to look that up after this.
Yeah. But like I said, just don't make it forced. Invite people. And if you think they're cool, invite them. It doesn't necessarily have to go find every African-American or Hispanic person on campus. Just, you know, if you think they're cool, hey, come on out.
Thank you, guys. That was helpful.
You can also reach out to the Black Girls Run organization. They're a national organization, and quite often they're looking to add some cross training, just out of fitness, and because they're about fitness and lifestyle. A lot of them come from a running background, but of course they're going to need support on the swim. And the one other thing I'd like to say, in this time of racial equity that we're looking to have and seek racial equity, a participation in a sport that only has 0.5%, like the panelists are, they're contributing, they're making a physical contribution to the transformation of a paradigm. So there's a personal benefit, and then there's a deeper being part of a movement to transform, to contribute.
The first year that I made the U.S. team, myself and Leslie, and I can't remember Leslie's last name. We were the only African Americans to make the team. This past year, there was an African American, at least one African American in every discipline. For 2 years, I was the only African American woman on the long course team. And I encouraged one of my friends to come out and try out for the long course team. And the joy that I got in her making the team was greater than the joy I got for myself making the team. I think we went from 3 to 17 African Americans on the US team. And one of the things I always where she said, sometimes we have no choice but to be first. But I add to that, sometimes we have no choice but to be first. But it was worthless if we're the last. We've got to encourage those who come behind us. I'm not shy about saying I'm an older athlete. My goal is to, yes, achieve some goals, but if I'm not dragging a whole bunch of people along with me, everything that I've done is worthless. So that's where I am as an athlete now. Yeah, I want to win some more races. I'm very open about the fact that I want to be on a national and an international championship podium. But my ultimate goal is to see a young Muslim girl who's way faster than I ever could have thought of being out there racing, and nobody even thinks about her hijab. All they think about is, dang, she's fast. That's what I want to see. When I see Sika is going to go on Facebook and post her card, and I will cry. I know I will, because I'm a crier. Those are the things that I want to see.
Well, with COVID and last year's crash, it might not be in the cards for me, but for me personally, it's been really great sharing my story, the good, the bad. That's why I originally started my blog years ago. It was when I did my first triathlon, and I used to read Max's blog. I don't know why you stopped, Max. It was really good, but I always like to read to see what other people are going through and what products they're using, and like what their training is like, how they balance training with work and stuff like that. And that's why I originally started writing, and now why I do freelance writing, just to put it out there so that other people can in some fashion relate to any part of my story. So I think it's important to just keep sharing our stories. Because it's great now that we're getting more of a spotlight, magazines are picking it up because they're trying to be diverse, try to get their publications more diversified. But even before that, I think it's just important that we take it on ourselves also to put it out there and not just, have us to do stuff like that.
You just mentioned something about what you eat, what the products and everything. So we have a question from somebody in the audience that say, could the panel speak to the cost and nutritional needs and adjustments that you need to do as triathletes?
I didn't get the whole question. That cut out on me.
I'm sorry. The question is, could the panel speak to the cost and nutritional needs and adjustments that you need to do?
I don't eat meat. Well, I eat fish sometimes, but I've never been on a really strict diet. I try to stick to high protein, high fat. Nutrition can get expensive. Unfortunately, I'm sponsored by a nutrition company, so that takes me a lot of money. But I just try to eat a well-balanced diet because I train so much. I train about 15, 16 hours a week. I do try to do a high-fat, high-protein diet. It's just a matter of eating things that are going to keep your energy level high. I've never been a drinker, so I don't drink. I am a borderline diabetic, so I avoid, sugary drinks and that type of thing. And that's actually how I found my nutrition company. But I haven't really made huge changes in my diet other than the fact that I did give up red meat and chicken, but I think I would have done that pretty much anyway.
What's your nutrition company?
F2C Nutrition. They're a Canadian
good.
company. Yeah. And the owner, I mean, he's all about the science. And they sit down with all of their athletes from the age grouper like me to the pros that they sponsor, and they talk about the different products that they offer, what's good for you, what's not good for you, your nutrition plan for your races. And I met him. He asked me a question. I can't remember what the question was. I said, I didn't use any nutrition for this particular race because I always feel sick afterwards. And I know I have to do the long course. I did the aquathlon. And then I told him I was going to be doing the long course the next day. I always feel sick for a couple of days after the race. And I think it's because my blood sugar kind of shoots up and doesn't come down. And he started talking to me about his products, and nobody do this. I did the dumbest thing you could ever do. I trashed my nutrition in the middle of the race, and I started using their products. And it was the first time after a race I didn't have a headache and I didn't feel sick for like a couple of hours after the race. And then I called him and I sat down with him. He mapped out a training fuel. It's fuel. I call it fueling. Nutrition is what I call what I eat every day. What I call from F2C Nutrition is my fueling. He talked about my training fueling and my race fueling. And after a couple of tweaks, that's the last thing that I worry about. I always feel great and amazing. My energy level is always good. And they're very honest about what's good for you, what's not good for you. And one of the things I asked him, I ordered something and it was out of stock. He's like, well, we won't have it till the end of the month. And they explained to me that they test every single ingredient that comes into their factory. And if it doesn't meet their standards, they rather be out of stock than sell it. And when he said that, I was just like, that. I really respect them. Their products have worked for me. And it's not like a sponsorship because I believe in the products that they use and they've really helped me. So, but yeah, I save a lot of money on there. They're a little bit pricey, but I save quite a bit of money because of that. But as far as my diet is concerned, I've always tried to watch what I eat. Sika knows I'm only 5 feet tall, so it's not good to be really short and chunky too.
Max and Sika, I like what you guys said about you don't have to have the latest bike or the latest wetsuit to get started. You guys, right? You guys agree with that? That just, for somebody cost-wise, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get started, right?
No, I did my first one in a bathing suit and on a mountain bike, that I got from Dick's. So yeah, the initial cost to entry, especially if you're just doing a sprint or something, is low. I think when you're trying to get to a certain level, like we are, it gets, you're trying to buy speed and get the, newest technology and electronic shifting and stuff like that. At that point, it starts going up. But the initial cost entry is, I would say, reasonable.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of the progression that will allow you to stay in the sport longer if you do go the route of just piecing things together and then kind of realizing, oh, I want to get into this because one, you're going to have really slow times in the beginning so that when you get the faster equipment, you're like, all right, I PR'd. But, and then also touching on the nutrition thing, I think it's important to kind of listen to your body. And if you can get the right blood work, and if you can talk to your doctor and kind of really get a really good understanding of what your nutrition can look like, it's going to pay off in the end. It's going to give you insight into your body. It's going to allow you to feel better. I actually took a genetics test of AxGen genetics test. If you look them up, it's really reasonable genetics test, but it's important because it allowed me to understand how I process lactose. I always thought I was lactose intolerant, but my genes at genetics actually show that I have this one gene that actually allows me to process lactose. I have a coffee company. This genetics test also showed that I actually benefit from taking in more caffeine. So he said, hey, your body actually processes caffeine fast, so you can drink more caffeine throughout the day, but you actually gain a 10% advantage over your competition if you use a caffeine substance before a time trial event. And then if you have those type of understandings, you're going to realize, okay, maybe I should stick away from lactose, because that's probably why I'm feeling so gunky and why I'm always getting upset stomach. You might think you're competing at an optimal level. You might think your body's functioning at the optimal level, but really from a genetic standpoint, you're not. There's also sweat tests out there, but there are just a few companies. F2C is a good company. I've now been using Tailwind, but go with the companies that are using organic, very clean products. There's a lot of stuff out there, but if you can get the companies that are just powder forms where it's like you're adding in your calories, I found that those small businesses, like those type of companies that focus on the science and the quality of your product, you're less likely to just have those upset stomachs and feeling all gunky and nasty and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of liquid nutrition, liquid fueling. So yeah, and quality is everything. Yeah.
Next question, Martha.
Well, we have various items here by people are really contributing in what they're saying, what they're doing. There is a post from Ola. She posted a link to a YouTube interview with Khadijah. So I'll let you check on the chat for that. The other item, it was here that I could see, it's about swimming. And for example, Guy, I believe it's Guy that posted, he said, for me, it's just warm water, local lake swim, and a bathing suit. It's just $30 to entry and gas to get there. So I think that it's talking, Guy, if you want to add something to your comment or question, or if you have a question, feel free to jump in.
No, I was just sharing, I often get questions about triathlon, and it's easy to get caught up in all the gear and technology and the expenses. And I share that literally my first triathlon was back in 2007. It was the Callaway Gardens, which is a local lake and park for children, quarter-mile swim, and literally $30 was the entry fee. And I used my old hybrid bike, something I bought from a retail store, and my running sneakers, because I was running. So there was no incremental cost except, the entry fee, because it was a bucket list item, and driving down there. There was some, I took my kids to the butterfly garden and got a cabin, but that was like a vacation for them. But, folks can easily get, enamored. You'll see the Sikas and the Maxes and all their fancy gear. For me, the young lady from UC Davis, if you can show regular folks and sometimes the transformative power of them experiencing and enjoying triathlon and make it approachable, you can also attract people, not just the fancy people, the ultra lean in the gear, but the regular person, the guy who may be a little bit overweight, the gal who recovered from breast cancer, the child who's doing their first try at Iron Kids. But that kind of shows the joy, the vibrance, and the approachability of it. That's another way, not the way, but that's just one vehicle. You know, you talked about IRONMAN. You know, this is basic marketing and community development. You look at where people are and you want people to reflect that and to pull them higher, not impose your thoughts, your arrogant expectations of what it should be. It's where are they and how do you connect with what could inspire them from their vantage point. So again, that's it.
And I'd like to say I know Guy, and this is not coming from some average Joe. He's the vice president of Clorox. He knows what he's talking about as far as marketing is concerned. And it's true. People want to see themselves. They want to be able to see themselves where in that space. So, yeah.
So Christina, maybe you want to add some of the good things or that Mighty Mujer does to open up those spaces that, you know, we go for the first time. As, you know.
Yeah, so so last year, and people in South Florida know this. So in the venue that we have Mighty Mujer, there's literally another race that happens by a different company 30 days prior to Mighty Mujer. Obviously that's changing this year, but it's just basically the same race. So when I came to Mighty Mujer and producing it there, I chose that location because it's a lake swim. In Florida, you have, for a flat swim, you have basically two choices, a pool and a lake. And for Florida people, our lakes are icky, right? Like we have this beautiful ocean, but you can't control the surf. You can't control the currents in the ocean. You can't control intimidation factors. So I chose this place because it's a very well-known park, and it's a place that people know to go and have a positive, easy association. Also, they do kayaking and different water sports in their lake. So I trusted the park rangers to actually take care of the water in the lake because I'm an aquatics background, so I'm very picky about the water that I go into. We came into it with the idea of, even though this is the same race, it's going to feel different for these participants. So we did a lot of things that aren't necessarily what you do for an easy race production. We made transition probably way longer than it needed to be. We intentionally separated the transition from the finish line, and we incorporated some of the like wins from the other Mighty Mujeres. And one of the big wins that Gabriela, the creator, always has is having this big, very inclusive party afterwards. And so we kind of set out to make sure we had businesses that were representative of women-owned businesses in the expo. Because if I am a new athlete and I cross the finish line at a women's only event, and then I'm getting bombarded with these products and these people talking to me about products that are heavy in the fitness industry, that are plastic surgeons, that are, you know, like this certain look and feel that's not inclusive to who I am, that's going to affect my overall experience of feeling like I am part of this community. And it was hard. I did not succeed in that. I wanted all of our businesses at the expo to either be 50% women-owned or women-owned businesses. And at the end of the day, we had maybe 30% of those businesses were women-owned businesses. We just found that there was very difficult to attract women competitors and women-owned businesses at the same time. Because some of the women I was going to are very active and influent in the community and have small businesses, and they were like, Christina, do you want me to be in your expo or do you want me to be in your race? Do you want me to bring my friends to your race, or do you want me to bring my team to work the esque boat, you know? So that was my challenge there. But I will say at the end of the day, it made a difference. People came to me at the end of the race and said, this felt like a completely different event than the one that we did 30 days before. And my friend who did this race her first time felt welcomed and comfortable, and I know we'll come back to another triathlon. Like, I can get her to go to a triathlon. I've been trying for years to get her to go to a triathlon. And I know now that she had this experience, she feels comfortable with the sport. So that's really what we did. Now, I will put out there, we pushed our Miami event to the very last weekend of 2020, humanly possible. So our event for 2020 is on December 20th. Right now, as of today, we still have a valid permit with the park and permission to put on the race. What we've done for us is decided that we're gonna go ahead with the race until they tell us we can't do the race. It may not be a race that has over 100 people there, quite honestly. There will be different things because of coronavirus, and there will be things that are permanently changed. You know, the way I've done water stations in the past will never happen again. Not to say that they were bad, but now we know we can do better. Like, we can do different things. So you know, it's there, it's on the calendar. I encourage everyone to go to the website, put it on your calendar. If you do register and for some reason we don't have it or you don't want to participate because of whatever, we are offering 100% full refund. Since it is a national brand, I can't put that on the national brand website, but I'm the one who literally will either hit the refund button in the back end or send you a check. So that's something that I'm doing as a race director because, you know, look, I live in the real world. You may register for a race and something may happen. You may have someone that's sick or you know, the world is crazy now. The other thing we're doing is considering a virtual and in-person race option. So even if we don't have to cancel the race, we're really looking at always having a virtual option. And my company is working on sports technology to make that viable in a competitive format. We're hoping to have a beta version of that out by the time we have Mighty Mujer. So that'll be another option we have for our athletes. I don't know if I answered the question. I just started babbling on about Mighty Mujer.
Thank you, Christina. Norman?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay, so I don't know if you had, out of the questions that you had, do you want to present to the team, or do you want me to go with some of the comments here?
Just one quick question I had for the panelists. When I started triathlons long time ago, we kind of just there weren't as many races, but it was just given that you were going to work your way progressively up: sprint, Olympic, half, full. I'm working with a couple of ladies now that Khadijah would know from Hannah Montana's Fast Chick.
Yeah, Fast Chick.
And they're coming to my backyard pool. I have a fast lane in there, working on their swimming. And their first race, their target is like an Ironman. Are we helping ourselves or hurting ourselves by kind of making it like your first run has to be a marathon? So many people I talk to now, they're not starting at the bottom and working up. It's like, boom. What do you guys think? What's your reaction to that? Do you see that, or is that just kind of a...
I think Ironman has taken over, and that's all we see really. With Kona, and most people, when they think of triathlon, they think of Kona, and they don't realize that there are so many small local races, and that's a shame, because that's how I got in the sport. If my only option had been to do a half Ironman or a full Ironman, I never would have done the sport.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even know they existed. I didn't
Yeah.
even know sprints existed.
No way, no way. I actually wouldn't even have done Kona if the opportunity hadn't presented itself. But I think that there needs to be more, I guess, advertisement for the local ones. There's not enough of that. I wish that the ones that I've done, that they were posted in the local YMCA or the rec clubs and stuff like that. The only reason why I found it was because I looked online. But yeah, it just seems like Ironman's taken over and people think that that's their only option. And there's nothing wrong with that being your ultimate goal, or, you know, you wanting to go start with a bang, doing something crazy like that. But like I said, I never would have gotten into the sport had there not been a sprint, and Ironman was my only option.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also always seen that Ironman's very good with their marketing, but thankfully, growing up racing on the Jersey Shore and now living here in the Bay Area and racing in Northern California, a lot of people don't know that there are more prestigious races out there than just Kona, right? There are races, for instance, in New Jersey, there's the IRONMAN Triathlon, that if you win that race, like, that's sometimes bigger than racing Kona in terms of in that area. Same thing here in California, in the Bay Area. There are races here that back in the day, people would race these races and then go to Kona, and that was how you would know you're in shape. A lot of these races are rebranded as Ironman races, but there's still a lot of independently owned races. I mean, you have Leon's Triathlon. That's one of the biggest races that if you went and raced that, that's a big deal. Lifetime, the Chicago Triathlon, still pretty much the biggest race that you could participate in, and that's Olympic sprint, or they have their Triple Crown Challenge race where it's super sprint. If you race super sprint, and Olympic. So my biggest thing is I think everyone should be doing sprints first in Olympics, because once you get really in shape, once you start doing a 70.3, you could literally race a sprint triathlon every single weekend, depending on the intensity that you do it at. Mm-hmm. But there are much more smaller races that I care about knowing that I would win than worrying about Kona. And I didn't believe I was really ready to become a pro triathlete until I won the Wildwood Triathlon, which is a hybrid sprint, but in the on the East Coast in New Jersey, if you're racing on the Jersey Shore, people like Joe Malloy have won the Wildwood Triathlon. I've won the Wildwood Triathlon, and it's just this race that's rich in history of racing by the boardwalk. You know, everyone just stays at their shore house, and everyone just knows each other. And those are the races that everyone remembers. Oh, yeah. I remember back in 2014 when you won Wildwood, or when you won the Sandman Triathlon. And it's like, yes, at the end of the day, it's great to go to Kona, but you could be the one that wins that local race every single year for 5 years straight, and you're able to say, well, I've won that. You know, when you're older, you're going to be able to say, like, hey, I won that race for 5 years, right? So I care much more about racing local races, racing the sprints, the super sprints in the Olympics, than I do worrying about racing for the Ironman brand.
What was your favorite
briefly
race?
To put it back on the marketing and the personal impact, because we are talking about inclusiveness, so 60 seconds or less. To Max's point, it's hard to compete with an Ironman. They're funded. It's really the viral nature of the smaller races and kind of the why and how that could impact people. And so, as you said, you can be on the podium. They're typically They typically have a much more communal feel. The one I just did this past weekend with my children, I think Dana mentioned, it was small enough that I felt that from a coronavirus standpoint, I didn't have anything. They had them appropriately segmented. And this guy, Lowell, who runs this series, really cares about the participants, and you feel it. And when you're kids and they do it from 5 up to, seniors, one guy is 70-something years old, when they get on the podium, it impacts them and they want to come back and get on that podium again. And so it's really incumbent on the viral nature. It's like niche marketing to compete with the big Ironman brand. Like, here's why it's relevant. Here's how you can feel. And, I share that series with pretty much everyone that I know is, hey, it's local, it's close by. I think it was like $30, $35. I registered late at the last minute with the kids, and they had a blast. My daughter got first in the run. I got a second in the bike, and as Max says, you can redline it. I'm at Z5 on my heart rate from start to end, and it gives you that good training stimulus as well. So it's really how you compete with the Ironman brand, and it's how you connect it to the individuals on why that's relevant. Because the ego wants to go to Ironman, but it's really who are you trying to reach, and kind of how can they feel, how they can feel some sense of connection to the local races. And it helps out the race directors as well.
I saw in the comments someone brought up Delmo races. Honestly, I can't think of a more inclusive brand than Delmo. What Delmo?
From his cup right now.
Exactly. What Delmo has done for me, like early in my career, like I literally, when I was 22 years old, I wrote Delmo and said, like, I'm gonna win your race. And he's just like, all right, kid. Well, here's a code. And earlier in my career, when I was just working at coffee shops and working at odd jobs, there was just one year I didn't even reach out to him. He just sent me a message, Max, here's a code for all my races. And I was like, oh, thank you, Delmo. So for me, I always race the local races because the only I had to gamble my one opportunity, the $700 on a plane ticket and a hotel. So I was only going to have one opportunity. So if you're trying to take it to the next level, someone like Delmo, you can race all of his races and then go to one big name race, but all of how he runs his small local races, those are all world-class races. I can go to an Ironman race and you're not going to get a hot buffet, sausage, eggs, bacon, like someone catering to you. Same thing here. With USA production races, there's half burrito sandwiches and bags of chips. I've gone to Ironman races and it's like a bagel that you have to spread peanut butter on yourself. And I'm like, what's going on here? And you'll just see, you go to those local races. I mean, those post-race meals are better than the larger races. And that's what you really want to care about, is when you pay for that race and you cross that finish line, like, someone's got to feed me.
Are you in college, Max?
Mighty Mujer had a great selection of food at the end of the race because she had local restaurants going with gourmet food. And I got extra cookies that day, but they were like gourmet food. That's what we had in a local race. So I just went for the food, I think.
Martha, can we take one more question? And then I saw Miriam, our CEO, is here with us. I thought if we maybe take one more quick question, and I'd love for Miriam to just say something to the group as CEO of Diversity.
Yes.
Is there one more question we have, or no?
I leave it open for the audience if anybody wants to unmute themselves to ask a question.
I'd like to share something. I know when we talk about diversity, we talk about the language that people speak and the color of their skin. But one of the things that's a huge issue, and I spoke at a diversity and swimming seminar. It was actually a series of seminars. Swimming in the Muslim community, because of modesty, is a huge issue. There was even one woman who told a story that she literally stood on the sidelines as her child was struggling in the water because she didn't know how to swim, and she didn't swim because she didn't want to swim in the presence of men. And I think when we think of diversity, we can't just think about the language that people speak and the color of their skin. We have to think about cultural issues as well. And I'm speaking as a Muslim. There are other cultures too where not dressing modestly is an issue, and that keeps them out of the water.
Thanks, Khadijah.
Yeah.
Miriam, I see you there, and as CEO of Diversity and Aquatics, I'd love to have you. We're getting down to where we only got a few minutes, but I'd love to have you just say something to our group. Thank you so much for your support as a council chair to do these kinds of projects.
No, thank you guys. Thank every one of our panelists. First, I want to say thank you to our panelists. It's amazing. I've I'm a fan. And to see each of you, I've followed Sika, Khadijah, I've followed you, Max, I've followed you, and to have you here as part and sharing your knowledge and experience and all there is about triathlons. Christina, it's so great to meet you and to learn more about your programs and everything there. I want to especially thank Norman, who is our triathlon chair, who helped us to get this into fruition. We've been talking about having this discussion for a while now, and to see it into fruition has been quite amazing. He is very humble about his accomplishments, but Hall of Famer for triathlons, and has a great story himself and his involvement. And so I want to say thank you, Norman, and also thank you, Martha. If you did not know, Martha is behind the scenes and helped to do all the things that you don't see to make our webinars happen. And the conversation doesn't stop here. For us at Diversity in Aquatics, we want to help push this conversation even more, not only just in triathlons, but also across all aquatic disciplines. We have 7 different councils that are involved in different aquatic areas. You know, triathlons is one. We have competitive swim. We've got our Veterans Council. We've got scuba. We've got so many different councils, and we'd love to have, as Martha said in the opening remarks, have you involved. This cannot happen without members like you. We are 100% volunteers. I'm a full-time teacher, and I work within the public school system here in Washington, D.C. Martha is a full-time education consultant, but we're all 100% volunteers. So these things cannot happen without our members, and our members are what drive us. It's for members, by members. So for us as an organization, you can be involved too. We'd love to have you as our members be involved. If you see a webinar you'd like to see come up, next month is our HBCU HSI webinar that's led by our HBCU HSI Council Lead, Dr. Ashira Allen, to talk about all things HBCUs. So this conversation doesn't stop. We'd love to have you involved in more. Please, I'll put my email, I'll put Martha's email, all of our emails up in the chat box. Contact us and more. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just sitting here as a fan. So I'm just, thank you to each of our panelists again.
Yeah, thanks panelists, and thanks for everybody that participated. Martha,
I do have
you guys got anything to close us with?
Yeah, there are a lot of conversation happening in the chats. I want everybody to go and check it out. We'll leave it open for a few more minutes. We're almost getting to the top of our time. But I do want to have a question for our panel members here. Well, since Ironman, they have their own initiative and we have our own initiative here. And this is just the beginning. We are, you know, having these conversations, opening these channels of communication and creating a new dialogue. But what else you as athletes, professionals, and experts, really, I want to think, what do you think Diversity in Aquatics can do more in addition to these webinars? What else can we do to make it better, to have more opportunities? How do we, what do you suggest?
I think we're in such a social media world. To be honest with you, if Norman hadn't reached out, I wouldn't have known this was taking place today. I guess putting out more on social media so that people know, in groups like Black Triathletes Association, and even in some of the running websites, like on Facebook, National Black Marathoners Association. I'm part of Black Kids Swim. This would have been really great there as well. And that you might have actually posted these things and I just didn't see it, but yeah, just putting it out there more so that people know that this is going on and that you do have a website and you have access to it.
All right. Thank you.
I've noticed that there's a few other younger athletes that are showing up on the scene. So I would like to see the community rally around them, and for the next 5 years, just kind of let them know that, hey, we're committed to getting them to the next level, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of commitment, it takes a lot of sacrifices. And I feel as though instead of waiting for them to reach out to us, if we reach out to them, if your organization reaches out to them and say, hey, we've heard about you, what are your plans, what are your goals? are you planning to be in this for the next 5 years? If so, then what can we do to support you? Because no one else is going to do that for them, right? USA Triathlon, Ironman, no one else is going to do that for the next crop of individuals that are going to come along that have the opportunity to reach it to that highest level in this sport. So I think it's our responsibility to kind of help them along the way.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to reach out. And I'm particularly, I did my undergrad at North Carolina A&T State University in HBCU. I went to grad school at the University of Miami. I am very interested in the triathlon program, the collegiate triathlon program. A&T has a huge swimming history, and 2 years ago lost their swim program. I am friends with someone in the athletic department, and I'm extremely interested in getting a program started there. My father swam there, I ran track there, and I would love to be a part of getting a triathlon program there. It's really just like Max said, reaching out. If us being first is useless if we're the last. We've got to grow the next generation, and it's not just about it's just about the beauty of the sport. All the experiences that we've had, all the growth that we've had as human beings, came through the sport, and it's just a vehicle to share that and to share growth as human beings. It's not just about sport. It's about leaving a legacy of humanity and using sport as that vehicle to do it. So,
Great.
If I can say one more thing, I see a lot of people in Northern California that are in this group. So if there's a way for you guys to reach out to me, because if you haven't noticed, from Northern California to Southern California, we're all not connected. So we got to figure that out.
Max, do you want me to put your email address here in the chat?
Yeah, fennellmax@gmail.com is fine. But yeah, we all should figure out how we can get together and do some stuff for the kids out here.
Okay, great. We have Virgil. Actually, he is one of our Diversity in Aquatics members, and he is in one of the consoles. So Virgil, can you unmute yourself? Maybe you can introduce yourself here.
Hey, good day, folks. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, hello. Yes, I agree, Max. California is kind of disjointed, so if we all can get together on that. But to everyone that showed up today, information is very powerful. Hopefully we can share this with the college teams or forming college teams, as well as the masters teams, because I'm in contact with both. And there are a lot of masters teams out here, and they would love to hear the stories that you wonderful folks have shared. Because unfortunately, the flavor in those triathlon teams is, let's say, not colorful. So, and it's only because they don't know. And what was shared here, as far as what I think Guy was saying, is just as far as getting information out and going to different areas that people aren't at to get this information. I think Sika said the same thing as far as, hey, approach people to let them know that you can start this at a very, very low level and work up. And a lot of folks don't know that. So thank you. And hopefully this is recorded so that we can use that to share later. But feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'm here in California. I'm not only with Diversity in Aquatics here, but I'm also on the Diversity in Aquatics Committee for USA Swimming, as well as Masters. And I'm an official, so I go around and I see many, many, many teams. So please reach out if you have any questions, and I can share that with the national committees on diversity, on things that we have to do. Because a lot of this I'm taking back that we can have as our resources. So thank you, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Virgil. And I'll send you send you the email so you can connect with Max as well. And thank you. We're here at the top of the time, the hour. So Norma, back to you. If so for the closing.
Yeah, just
before we do it,
thanks to everybody that participated.
One more person to.
Yeah, this is Virgil. Well, one thing for Khadijah, which would be very, very, very helpful. If there's any way you can do a video or interview as far as modesty uniforms, so that we can put that up online, not only for here for diversity in aquatics, but also for USA Swimming. Put that out there because visuals are very strong, and I'll make sure that it gets up with master's programs because people don't know, and I as an official, those come up a lot, and you have to have someone up there that says, hey, yes, we can do that, but a lot of people want to challenge you. Well, where's it in writing? So if something like that can be done, that'll be very helpful. And I'm sorry, Norman. Thank you.
No problem.
I've saved all of my kits from the first thing that I raced in all the way to the kits that I have now. It's kind of a history of the craziness of Khadijah. And maybe I'll put something together down to the few kits that I have that are actually ITU approved. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate panelists being here, giving us your time, and all the participants. Everybody have a great evening. Stay safe.
It's good to see you, Sika.
Bye. Thank you. You guys as well. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Rachel, you can stop the recording.